Hi everyone, my name is David Ogilvy, and this is the podcast where I explore what it means to live, feel, and work better. Dreaming big is both good and bad advice. On the one hand, it's essential to know where you are going, and on the other, it can lead to unrealistic expectations and disappointment later down the line. This week, I'm joined by Grammy-nominated singer-songwriter Richard Bedford, exploring how he turns small dreams into a big one. Our conversation tracks his journey and the reality of starting in small bands and being told to get a proper job, right through to singing in front of huge crowds worldwide with super DJ Armin van Buuren. So, hello Richard, welcome to the Resilience Development Podcast. I'm very excited to have you here.
Hi David, I'm really pleased to be here too.
Yeah, good, because I say this a lot to guests on my show, but we know each other, don't we? We're very old friends.
Yeah, we met in about 1991, I guess.
That's a long time ago now, isn't it? How many years is that?
Yeah.
32? 32.
Yeah, 31, 32.
Been about that. Yeah,
we're showing our age now by the fact that we couldn't work out that math.
Do you remember how we met?
Yeah, I turned up with no idea what I was doing to audition for a band that you were in the sunny hills of West Yorkshire in Elland.
West Yorkshire, because we're obviously both from West Yorkshire, and we've been stuck together ever since, really, haven't we? Yeah,
pretty much. Lots of kind of peaks and troughs, and kind of yeah. It's been a nice journey,
and some adventures along the way. Some which we might touch on, others we couldn't possibly touch on. And I suppose with this, because we know each other so well, we'll have to watch for that slipping into real informality. Have to watch for that.
Yeah. Unless you've got a bleeper, then we're best off being good. Been good. I think.
We'll see where we end up. I mean, I haven't got a bleeper, but I do have the technology. We will be able to bleep it, but hopefully it won't come to that. It might come to that if we were somewhere else, but not today.
No, but we're going to be on our best behaviour.
We are best behaviour, because we're going to talk today really about dreaming big and chasing your dreams. And it kind of, I think before we go forward, let's go backwards. Let's go back to that. When we first met, you were auditioning to be in a band, and you were coming to play keyboards, weren't you?
Yes.
And I always thought
yeah, that's right.
You were a brilliant keyboard player, right? Absolutely brilliant keyboard player. And
I had no idea what I was doing.
Well, you did a really good job of because you got in, didn't you? You got in the band, but
I did get in the band,
which
I faked it before I made it.
So it must have looked like we knew what we were doing, but we didn't. So everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah, I remember being really nervous.
Yeah,
and we had a very energetic drummer at the time who was.
We did, didn't we?
Overexcited.
Yeah, he was like the drummer out of the Muppets, wasn't he?
Yeah, or someone from Spinal Tap.
Yeah, and he had lots of hair, didn't he? And wasn't it a rock drummer?
Well, the only band he ever listened to was Marillion.
Okay. So there are some clues, aren't there, really? There's some clues here already about dreaming big and why I might be talking to you about dreaming big. Because if we go back all of those years, we played in a band together. I originally came across you as a keyboard player. I loved the way you play keyboards. Do you remember the keyboard? What was that big thing that you used to have? That big, you used to drag it around everywhere. It was massive. It was like a table.
It was huge. It weighed about 13 stone. It was a Viscount Intercontinental drawbar organ.
Yeah.
Big silver thing. It looked like it should have been on the set of, the original series of Star Trek.
Yeah, it looked cool. It sounded cool as well, didn't it? It did sound cool.
Yeah. I have no idea where it is.
No, but that did sound cool. And then one day you started to sing. We kind of started to have musical differences, because I remember you started to sing. And at the time, I think even now, one of your big influences is Depeche Mode. You're a big fan of Depeche Mode. And and for me, I wanted to play kind of funk guitar. I wasn't interested in, that kind of music. But I remember we've been friends ever since. ever since. But I remember we kind of went separate ways. We didn't fall out. We kind of went separate ways because I had some advice for you, and at the time I wanted to kind of, I didn't want to play in a band for the rest of my life. I wanted to kind of go build a career and have a family and do all of that stuff. But you had a different idea, didn't you?
I don't know if it was an idea. I think it was a kind of path that I just never left somehow. I don't think, because you were always really driven. You had a definite goals, and kind of, you'd have short-term goals and long-term goals, and you seemed very kind of clear in your direction, whereas I was kind of I floated around a lot more, I think.
Went to uni, got lots of degrees in sound engineering and music, that kind of thing.
Well, I started off, I don't know if you remember, but I actually left the band that we were in at first to go and do a fine art degree, and I lasted about 18 months, I think, which was fairly typical of me at the time. And I mean, I always consider it as I was far too young, and also when I went to university in Sheffield, I realised that I could book out the recording studio, and so even though I was doing a fine art degree, I was just booking the recording studio out all the time, and it just seemed slightly kind of ridiculous that I was doing a course that wasn't right for me. So so I shifted away, and then I ended up graduating sort of quite a few years later.
And then I remember you wanting to pursue a career in music, and I remember me saying to you, you need to get a job. You need to get a serious job.
You and most of the rest of the world were kind of telling me that, get a proper job. It's a very, very common. It's a very common response to someone kind of pursuing an unusual career path, I guess.
Yeah, and I often think.
I was going to say I perhaps didn't help myself by being quite as flaky as I might have been when I was in my younger years.
So
people automatically assumed that I was just being floaty.
Yeah, floating around. I think I might have used that term to you at some point. Floating around. Stop floating around. You just need to get a job, Richard. Yeah. Right? So let's fast forward to now. Right? Let's fast forward to now. How, where are you at now? I mean, let's start off with Grammy nominated.
Yeah, I was nominated for a Grammy at the 61st Grammy Awards, nominated for Best Dance Recording. We got thrashed by Dua Lipa, Diplo, and Mark Ronson, but that's not a huge surprise. They might have a little bit more clout than we did. But yeah, I mean, I've been very, very, very lucky. I've played all over the world, some fairly prestigious venues,
like
Madison Square Garden, Forum in LA. I've played in arenas and stadiums, across the globe, which is pretty lucky, really.
Yeah, and if I go into YouTube and type Richard Bedford, I'm going to see some big videos with some big hits, aren't I?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how. I haven't looked in a while. You sort of, I guess you get a bit tired of looking, but I don't know. 250 million plus, probably.
Yeah,
I guess kind of hits on the.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad
repertoire.
Not bad from a lad from West Yorkshire, is it?
No, with his Viscount Intercontinental organ.
Exactly. So I think the moral of this story is, and the tip for people wanting to live better, work better, and feel better, which is what this podcast is about, is don't take any advice from me, because I clearly don't know what I'm talking about.
It's difficult, isn't it? I was watching the famous Arnold Schwarzenegger speech talking about don't listen to the naysayers. And whatever you think of him as a politician or his acting career, you can't help, or for me, that certainly resonated. It really clicked with me because, while I may have been kind of lacking in direction, in my kind of early 20s, I think I simply kept going. I just kept pushing at what I love, really, and didn't deviate from that path. And I think there's this idea that, I'm really driven and that I always had this confidence, and it's just nonsense. I mean, you must remember I was one of the shyest guys around. I had a kind of extrovert side, but I was also kind of very, very shy in sort of company that I didn't know. So yeah, I think that so the music and this direction that I kind of happened upon, in a sense, is kind of it's kind of grown with me. It's a part of me now.
Yeah, it's interesting that you use the words "happened upon" because you were always very creative and you were always focused. It doesn't matter what anybody said to you. You are always. I always remember that response. No, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do.
I was always very, very stubborn with it. Absolutely, But I think there was also a fear in me that I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what else I could do. I think there was a kind of, I'd given it so much. I think there's a point where you've gone all in.
Yeah, make or break.
You've gone all in, and there is no reverse gear. So you've got to just kind of push it. And I think I was in that. I think I was in that place kind of when, I guess, the career part of my musical path kind of took hold, really. So in some, well, I'm going to say in some ways that's a sort of interesting story in itself, because what year was it? 2005. So 2005. So we're a long way away from when we first met. And I kind of noodled around, played in kind of various bands, developed a bunch of skills that, didn't make me terribly employable. But then a friend I'd met at college was working for Anjunabeats Records at the time, and just had been banging at me to send a demo in, because they were looking for a singer. And essentially, I'd got to this age where I genuinely wasn't sure I wasn't sure whether I was ever going to kind of do anything in music, if that makes sense. So, it was when I was on a residential course, and I'd gone there as a filmmaker, because, as you know, I've always done lots of different things. So I'd gone there as a filmmaker, and when anyone, there's a big group of us. It was about working with young people in the prison system, and so I'd been just introducing myself as a kind of videographer, and it wasn't till the last night, when everyone was having a few glasses of wine, and there was a guitar going around, because there were a bunch of musicians there, and everyone had sort of done a bit of a turn, and then they just said, do you play, Richard? And I said, oh, a little bit, And so they said, oh, go on, do something, I said, all right. And I'd written a song kind of, 6 months previous. So I played it, and there was just absolute hush in the room. And it was just like, oh my. And I was like, this might be a thing. Maybe I should send that demo. So if I hadn't have gone on that course, my life may be very, very different now. If that makes sense. Sorry, I got interrupted with a phone call in the middle of that. The joys of my mum.
Say hello to her from me. No, look, that makes a lot. I think a lot of sense, because I talk to lots of people. They go, if I hadn't done this, then possibly I wouldn't be where I am now.
Yeah, and you can never know when that moment's gonna come. It really is an absolute, a lottery. I think you can give yourself more more chances. I mean, this is why networking and kind of making connections and spreading your arms wide is very important, because you give yourself more of a chance. But
Well, I see, that's interesting because, I mean, obviously, you know, my kids, Ben and Lily, I tell them both,
I do.
luck. We talk about luck. I don't know where it's not my idea. I've got it from somewhere, but I don't know where it's from. If anybody knows and they want to let me know, it's brilliant. You might know when I say it, but look, I often think of luck is the combination of preparation and opportunity. And the more you prepare and the more opportunities you create, the luckier you'll be. In other words, don't
Yeah,
just
100%.
and that's how I tend to think about it. Because I think, just going back to what you said earlier about not knowing what you want to do, I think anything below 20 is, and I'd say everything below 25 is, it's a terrible age to know exactly what you want to do, or to feel the pressure that you know exactly what you have to do. So I mean, I've got two kids, as you know. Ben, he knows exactly what he wants to do and has done. A little bit like me, right? Lily is not so sure. Interestingly, she's very creative. You know, very, very, very creative. She's not sure what she wants to do. She knows that she wants to progress certain careers and things like that. But I just think that's brilliant. I love the fact that she doesn't know. And I love the fact that she's willing to go out into the world. She wants to go to uni. She'll go to uni. She'll take on some education. She'll work out where she needs to be. I think it is very. There's this emphasis in the world that you must just know what you want to do, and you must just drive and go pursue your dreams. Basically, dream big and go get it. But that leads you to, well, what if you don't know what you want to do?
I think there's also there's an addition to that, which is within the arts. So if, you know, young Jamie's great with his hands, likes getting in, and he's really good at kind of solving problems and kind of, you know, kind of making stuff very kind of dexterous and kind of, you know, good at problem solving, then yeah, Jamie's maybe going to be a mechanic, or maybe going to be a, you know, a carpenter or whatever. You know, you can see that definite career path. But those career paths within music, especially when you've got the naysayers who are saying, get yourself a proper job, you know, and I mean, essentially that's down to people. How many people know someone who's made it, to some extent, made a career in the music industry, or as a fine artist, or as a filmmaker? You know, it becomes, it becomes very. If you don't know anyone that's done that, it becomes a pipe dream.
Yeah,
They're just people kind of on, you know, on screens, or on, you know, and but yeah, but essentially, going back to what I was saying, I think that clear career path within the arts isn't defined, and part of that's its beauty. You can kind of, and that probably appealed to my floaty nature, you know. So I think it is difficult to, you know, because career progression is often, very self generated. It's not necessarily something that is, you know, you've not got, you know, I start this job, I get a promotion, I do this, da 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 da
yeah,
da. You know, there's not a career kind of path as such. You form your own, and that's quite scary.
yeah. It's interesting because we're assuming career progression is upwards as opposed to breadth
Yeah, okay, yeah, that would make
as
some
well.
sense.
Because if I think about you and what you're really good at, you know, you're good with a camera, you're good with computers, you're good with music, singing, you know, all of that stuff. Because I know you produce your own work, but you're also a songwriter for other people, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, I write for other people. I've got a bunch of kind of, certainly more nowadays than ever. Really, I've got lots of things on the go, and for me that really works, because it stops me feeling stale. I can just kind of, in my creative day, I can go from one project to another, to another, to another, and then if that feels stale, you move to another, and it kind of builds up as a kind of, you know, as a kind of mosaic, really.
Yeah, and I'm assuming there's some things that you have to do that don't feel particularly creative, but they keep the,
That's why you have the creative little projects. So you do that for kind of 2 hours, and then you go, I just can't listen to that anymore, and you move on to this great little kind of quirky project that you're working on that'll make you no money at all.
Yeah.
But it's just, yeah.
Because I mean, if I go look on YouTube and things like that, and it's always nice to say, oh yeah, that's my mate. Yeah, I'm very proud of you. Yeah, so I say, that's my mate. But if you look at it, you go, the reality is very different to the rhetoric, isn't it? It's not all
Extremely.
It's not all glamour and big. I always remember. I think it was probably. I think I saw it at YouTube, or it might have been the Van Buren gig. It's this massive, absolutely massive stadium, and you just sat away from everybody else.
Right,
It's just you, and it must have been. I don't know how many people was in that place at the time. It's just.
I think that's the Ziggo Dome in Amsterdam. It's not huge, but it's like 15,000 probably.
So what's huge? What's the biggest you've ever?
Oh, crikey. I don't know. I played Global Gathering main stage. That was the first show I did when I'd kind of moved into that world. And that was, I guess, 50,000, but it was live on Radio 1 too. So
yes.
That was a little daunting.
So people see that and go, oh, yeah, he's made it big and look at him, isn't he great? But there's a lot of hard work and a lot less glamour in the background, isn't it? So we're talking about dreaming big here. And it's okay to dream big. You've got to kind of follow it up with the realism. And can you talk a little bit about the realism of being, think of, I think you toured with Armin van Buren. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
And that was quite.
Yeah, we did 38 shows.
Right.
I mean, my son Jerry, he'd just been born, so that was a really difficult time to go on a 38-day world tour.
Yeah.
Luckily, I kind of looked at the proposed dates and it worked to some extent, and I had a long conversation with Jerry's mum Charlotte, and we figured we could kind of we could work that out. But I mean, it was. I mean, and that's this kind of there's normal everyday life, and then there's this crazy world you find yourself in. And I remember after every show, would there'd be a kind of party at front of house, and Armin did a vinyl set, and I remember every single show I'd just kind of find a quiet corner, and just with my little glass of champers, and just kind of, and you were in the middle of the crowd, and so I'd kind of hide away and just kind of take it in, because it's difficult to take it in when you're performing. And I just take it in and go, wow, how did I end up here? How did this happen? And there wasn't a single show where I didn't have that kind of, that sense of, the only thing I can kind of liken it to is you're standing at the edge of a huge cliff with an expanse that you didn't know was there. Just kind of takes your breath away a little bit, and you kind of go, wow, I had no idea. How did that suddenly appear? And it's almost like that. It's very otherworldly.
And if there's anybody listening to this that wanted to kind of go, do you know what, I want to be up there and do what he's doing, on reflection, is there any advice that you could give them when you look back and go and ask the question, how did I get here? I know, you might go, I'm not really sure, but if I pushed you to think back about the kind of big steps or advice that you'd give anybody, what?
Well, I think first thing, rather than big steps, I think the first thing would be what worked in my favour. We've talked about me being floaty. I don't know how many times we've said that on this, but one of the things that really, really helped me, I think, is having that ability to work in a variety of different disciplines, be multi-instrumental, learn how to play keyboards. It's not hard. Learn how to play guitar, learn how to do all of these different things. Then even if you're not playing those instruments, because I mean, I don't play keys very often anymore. I write on piano, that's about it. But but know what it's like to be the drummer or the sound engineer. You know, then you can have a much kind of clearer understanding of what they're trying to do, and creatively, it's going to make a huge difference. And then, I mean, we all need to be. The modern musician's got to wear so many different hats, so you can't just be a singer. You know, that's what the X Factor generation would have you believe, but it's not that. That isn't reality. You've got to be. You know, you speak to even someone as successful as a Beyonce or a Alicia Keys, they're going to know so much more than you see. You know, that is literally the tip of the iceberg. There's a wealth of knowledge underneath that, and you need that. You know, and I think, and that helps you, especially, you know, in a world where you can self-release, where you can publish your own materials, you can do videos on YouTube. You know, that gives you a head start. So get great at as much as you can, really kind of, you know, even if you just want to be a guitarist, be great at all sorts of different things, and it will just help influence and feed creatively what you're doing.
Yeah, and as you were talking about that, I was thinking that, I mean, that's the same for any team. If you can understand technically what people's limitations, whether that's a drummer, and you can have empathy for them, that's got to be good all round, doesn't it?
Yeah,
everybody gets better from understanding that.
And I think it also takes the pressure off in terms of performance anxiety, because there's not the same. You're not putting yourself under the same pressure because the other people around you all understand how difficult it is to do your job.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was one of the things that that Armin said that really stuck in my head when we did our very first show, and he just said, you know, someone will make a mistake tonight. He might have said it in slightly more flowery language, but yeah, he said someone will make a mistake tonight, and I want you to get behind them and kind of make sure that they're okay, because that's just a part of it. There's no judgment, there's no stress with it. It's just part of performing live, you know.
Speaking of,
It really stood by me. Go on.
Yeah, well, it's very human, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, of course.
It's very human, which is, I mean, if you're doing 38 places around the world, you want to be working with people like that, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
Because you kind of going, I'm kind of going in my head, you know, you talked about performance anxiety, or I might have just made those words up, right? But I'm kind of,
no, that's definitely.
Yeah, I'm kind of going, how do you go from, singing in a small band, right up to standing in front of, did you say 50,000 people?
Yeah, I think there was probably that.
Yeah, how, any hints or tips? Do you remember going out the first time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember being petrified.
All the nerves.
Literally. Well, it's not just performance anxiety. It's the other things that come with it. Sometimes, kind of like a little bit of knowledge doesn't help. So I knew a bunch of technical things that could possibly go wrong that were out of my control, and there's 18,000 people at this show who don't know any of those things, and will just, you know. So there's remembering words. It's remarkable. I mean, you know, I wrote the song. You think you'd remember the words, but and luckily, touch wood, I've never forgotten. But you are aware that you start questioning everything.
Yeah.
And I had to do a kind of little trick with myself, where I'd just find a spot before I was at the bottom of the stairs waiting to go on stage, and I'd just find a spot, be it a speck of dust, a bit of blue tack, something, and I'd literally just focus on that completely. Just forget everything else. Just focus on that. It's kind of a mindful thing, isn't it? Where you just pull yourself into a moment. And the weird thing was, I'd be really nervous about, kind of questioning all the multitude of things that were going to go wrong. There's also the thing where you think, I'm going to go to the top of the stairs and everyone's just going to laugh at me. And I know you know that that's nonsense and that isn't a conscious
Yeah.
thought, but it's still there.
Yeah.
It
I
really
mean,
is.
there are a lot of things in there about what we teach people, like why you forget when you're under stress.
Yeah.
It's a stress response. You're not supposed to be making logical decisions when you're stressed. You're supposed to be just fight or flight. Simple as that.
Yeah.
So your brain goes fuzzy, and that kind of distraction technique or the grounding technique that you're doing by focusing on something in particular is a good one. And it's really easy to do that. What if, and catastrophize.
Exactly.
What?
But it's the unknown. Yeah. That's the thing. And and this is going back to what you were saying about Lily is when I, as soon as I set off up the stairs and got on stage, that all went.
Yeah.
Because I was facing it with something that I was prepared for.
Yeah.
My prior prep had, I was like, oh, there's not a dragon at the top of those stairs. It's just a crowd and I'm singing to them. And I've done that many times. And it doesn't matter how many times you do it,
Yeah, gets you.
I was aware that when I got to the top, I'd probably be okay, but
it's that inner self-talk, isn't it? Which applies to everybody, no matter what you're doing. Whether you're just standing up at work to deliver a presentation, whether you're going for a job interview, or whether you're standing in front of 50,000 people to sing, it's the same thing. Thing going on. And this is all the stuff I wish we were taught about at school. But I won't even go there. You're into resilience development company stuff, but we are kind of passionate about that stuff. And I'm guessing as a professional singer, you'll understand the power of breathing and being able to use that to ground you and things like that. But it's amazing to think about all those years ago in that room, totally nervous, having an audition in front of some people who weren't that great, but and then suddenly all these years down the line, you're doing that. That's massive. It's an amazing thing, mate.
Yeah. I guess it is. I don't. I tend to look back at moments with a kind of wry smile, but I tend to look forward far more than I do.
Do you think you are future focused as opposed to?
Yeah, very much so. Sometimes I catch myself and someone will post something on, like with the Armin tour, for instance. There was a camera crew followed us for the year, and so there's a bunch of road movies. So there was a road movie kind of like I think it was twice a month they did a road movie, and someone posted one up just on my social media, and I'd kind of like, oh, I'd forgotten about it, and then you see all of this stuff that's gone on that I'd completely and utterly not necessarily forgotten about, but it brought it to kind of the present, and it made me realise how fun that was.
Did you ever have times on any of those tours where you thought, oh, no, this is not the right thing for me? The really tough days, or was it all just glamour and glitz? And yes, I've made it.
No, there was no. There was definitely. I don't remember a great deal of glamour and glitz. It's very functional, like we did a show in Minsk, and then we had to fly straight from the show to Helsinki and do a rehearsal, have a little bit of sleep, and then did another show. And it was that was unbelievably kind of tiring. I think there was a point where we were all on sort of 38 hours, no sleep, and just about to do a show. It's just insane. But it was just how that kind of worked out, And various things like, I was in Manila, flew back to the UK, said hi to everyone, flew back to Australia. It's just like insanity in terms of kind of. And then, like my solo shows, I remember coming off a plane, I played a show in Egypt, and I got off the plane, sweaty, thirsty, hungry, all the usual stuff, thinking I'll get to the hotel, have a shower, put on my kind of suave clothes for the show, and Yeah, they just drove me straight to the venue. So
Oh,
and said, and literally, I got out of the car and they went, "Hi, nice to meet you," and passed me a mic. So no sound check. I mean, it was only a small show, but it's still like 2,000 people at the University of what is it? American University in Cairo.
yeah, because
So that's just like, that's not terribly glamorous. I didn't smell terribly glamorous.
that's the interesting thing, and that it's that kind of, it's good to dream big. It's good to dare to dream. I think you have to have that. What's the right word? You've got to have that realism that it's got to be hard work to get there. There's no such thing as an overnight success. It's hard. Underneath it, it's hard. It's generally what I've found.
It's a job. I mean, it's a job. It's a job. It's a job, David. I mean, it really is. You know, yeah, I tend to be working most days from when I get up to when I go to bed. You know, I have to kind of timetable other stuff, otherwise, yeah, I mean, it's not getting a look in.
Yeah, and then mix it with family and.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, like the summer holidays that's on at the moment. So I've got Jerry alternate days, so I've got to kind of factor that in. So then I tend to be working longer night, way through the night on days when I don't have him. But yeah, I mean, that's just it. But it is just a job, essentially.
Yeah, I see. I always think that's interesting because I work with lots of people. In my role, I've worked with I've worked with fire, military. I've worked with doctors, midwives, all sorts of people, and they say the same thing. It's just a job, and I kind of think, well, it's not. My old job was just a job. Looking back at it, right, working in finance, it was just a job. But then I look at kind of what you're doing and what they're doing is, you've got to have a real sense of purpose. And you've got to be able to you've got to have resilience. You've got to be able to keep pushing through and being able to adapt. So it is just a job. But of course, because I know you, it's not. It's a real vocation for you, isn't it? If I said to you, you've got to stop tomorrow doing what you're doing, even those rubbish projects that you don't really want to work on, and you've got to be, I don't know, you've got to go work in finance, you won't go, okay, then it's just a job. Would you?
It's just not a chance. I mean, like it's just it is a part of who I am. But I think that's something that grows. It grows over time too, and the resilience also grows over time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there is something. It's certainly not unique, but there's something kind of. I guess one of the frightening things. So there's the idea that it's difficult to make it, and there's also the idea that it's, living the dream and all of the sort of glamorous stuff, that blinds you. As I think it was Peter Hook said, but it's more. You can crave the opportunity, and you can push, and you can push, and you can push for the opportunity. But when you get there, you're not sure if you can do it. There's very little to prepare you for. Yeah, am I gonna cut it?
Yeah,
for want of a better word. That's very. There is a real leap of faith there, and you just don't know. I mean, you can do gigs at your local pubs, and but when I remember going in to record for the first time with Above and Beyond. Now, I went in, shook hands with Tony. I didn't really know too much about Above and Beyond at the time, but I was aware that Tony was Madonna's marketing manager, and he'd kind of been involved in managing REM and Simply Red and all of this. And suddenly, you've gone from my mates down the puzzle in Sorby Bridge to I'm now singing.
Yeah, with a.
And I've got to, and you don't know how you're going to react to that, and you don't know if you're good enough. You don't know if you're going to cut that. So all of that work and all of that time and all of that building self-belief and building resilience and building all of this, there is a jump and hope that there's a net at the bottom.
Yeah, I get you. Because we're kind of talking about fear of failure almost, aren't we? And we're kind of going, I think there's a difference between fearing failure and not liking it. And I also think if you fear failure completely, you don't take that leap of faith. Because it is a leap of faith. You can only prepare so much. And then you've got to take the leap. And for some people, even though they've prepared, worked hard, they might not cut it. That's the reality of the world. The world can be a cruel place, can't it? So I completely understand that. Would you
But it's just been confronted by that in such kind of clear terms that you go. And I hadn't considered that on the way down. I was nervous and all of those things, but it was just when I was confronted with the music and a vocal booth and a microphone and three guys kind of like listening in, and I just suddenly thought, this is a sink or swim moment here. I didn't know this was coming.
Yeah.
You know, I was aware of it, you know.
And it obviously went well.
I think initially I was terrible, but then, you know, after I'd kind of got over thinking about that sink or swim moment, I'd kind of warmed to the task. But
yeah, and again, sometimes that thinking can just get in the way. If you could rewind back to that moment that we met, right? If you could rewind back to the Richard of that moment with hindsight, what advice would you give him? What would you tell him?
Get a proper job. No.
I knew I was right.
I would likely... Yeah, I mean, I'd likely tell him to embrace it. To embrace it and embrace as much musical experience as you could. Don't be shy about being involved in this project or that project. Just kind of immerse yourself in it, because it's the only way. And I think had I done that earlier, I wouldn't have waited till I was 132 till I brought out the first single. You know,
Are you like the Yoda of the music industry? Then he's 100 and odd, isn't he?
Yeah. If I take these headphones off, my ears.
There we go. Yeah.
But yeah, I think just embrace it, because I think I kind of like flicked between quite a lot, and I think there was confidence issues, and just become an expert in what you love, and the rest will follow.
Yeah.
It might not be easy, and there'll be tough times, but just become an expert in what you love, and it will pay off.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what that is.
Yeah, and don't listen to David. That's the other bit of advice you have to tell yourself.
Just don't listen to the naysayers.
Yeah, just don't. I mean, I was coming from a complete position of care.
Of course you were, and as was, everybody that told me that.
Yeah, I'm
when I was.
I'm glad you proved us wrong, especially me. Especially.
Oh.
So what's next? What can we expect from you over the next 12 months? Because you did talk about one point doing some kind of online course for people further down the line. Because there are a lot of people. I mean, when we first started, we had to lug our gear, and it was big gear, wasn't it? I remember having a big, massive amplifier, the keyboard that you're talking, that was big gear. Now you can do a lot in just a room. You can do it in your living room or your bedroom with technology, and you can emulate things.
Yeah, of course. You can practically do it on your phone.
Yeah. Are we ever going to see anything like learn with Richard Bedford? Are we ever going to see that? Or
I have been putting together some ideas for, I guess, for sharing some of this, my kind of, however long it's been in the music industry, the pitfalls, the kind of trying to, like you were saying about rewinding back to the kind of younger self, kind of an idea of doing that, but for other people, so they don't have to do those. Yeah, they don't have to kind of fall down all the potholes that I did on the way through.
Because I remember, I can't remember when the conversation was, but I remember asking you, how long did it take you to get to the point where you released your first single, and you were something like 20 years or something like that? And I said to you, if you'd have known now If you'd have known then what you know now, how long would it take you? And you immediately said something like, 6 months. You were like, and I think that's the point. And I think, when we wanted to create these podcasts, that was the inspiration for it. There's some amazing people out there with amazing stories and wisdom to pass on, particularly down the line. And I just don't think we do enough of that, especially in the world that says, you can be a success. You can just dream big. Just follow these 5 steps. Follow these 5 steps on YouTube, and off you go. And I think it is about balance. I may sound a little bit cynical there, but it is about that balance. I'm a big believer in people dreaming big, but it has to be tempered with discipline and hard work and experience. And again, putting yourself out there to receive wisdom and mentoring and experience from people who've been there.
And that's a part of what I was saying about the immersive experience. You really immerse yourself in the whole experience of your career, in a sense, or your kind of area of love. I think without that, someone else is doing it. It's almost a kind of sporting analogy. The kind of Muhammad Ali getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning and running 10 miles because he knew everyone else was in bed. It just gives him an edge, and it's not necessarily about a kind of competitive driven thing, in a sense. It's just, if you love what you do, really, digest as much of that as you can, I think.
Yeah. There's food on the table, eat it, kind of thing.
Yeah, just and try everything. Try everything.
Yeah, it's good advice. And any kind of particular projects that you're working on at the moment? Because I want this to be a platform for people to come on and kind of go, look, I'm working on this, come and check me out. And I think, I'm sure that people would, I can just type Richard Bedford in Google and it'll come up on Twitter and everywhere else and Facebook. Are there any little side projects that you're working on that you kind of might want to mention for people to check out?
Well, yeah, I've got. I have a bunch of singles coming out towards the tail end of the year and the start of next year, in my usual area of kind of electronic music. Mm-hmm. But I'm also working on a side project with a producer called Joel Odson, and I'm really, really liking the sound of that. It's kind of more Röyksoppy, kind of Radioheady flavored kind of project, which I'm really excited about. I have another project called Humanit, which is much more straight electronica, and I've also been through the sort of lockdown times, just enjoying making relaxation and ambient music and music for meditation and yoga. Yeah. So I've started a YouTube channel. It's only
what's it called?
Thing.
Tell people about.
It's called Our Moment of Calm.
Our Moment of Calm.
Yeah, that's its provisional title.
And you can,
subject to change. But it's just on YouTube. It seems to be picking up a little bit of traction. People seem to be kind of quite interested in.
And what would it be?
I've not given it much of a push, but
and if I went there and listened, what would I find?
You'd find 2-hour deep sleep relaxation music videos with everything from that to kind of 2-minute kind of like freshen up your day, sort of tranquil electronic kind of soundscape.
And that's called A Moment of Calm.
Our Moment of Calm.
Because we'll put this goes out both as an audible podcast. It also goes on YouTube. We'll put the link there for people to kind of have a look and see. And if people want to find you and follow you and find out when you're releasing new stuff, if they're thinking, if they come off this and go, I'm going to listen to this guy, and they go, wow, I love what he does, because I would recommend anybody to go and listen to you. And when you were talking about singing for the first time and people stopped, I love just to hear you sing and play guitar. I think it's amazing. And my wife Emma feels exactly the same. Definitely what you were born to do, mate. Definitely. So, but if somebody goes and listens to that and goes, "Yep, I want to follow this guy and get the news and views," how does somebody find you? Where would you like them to go?
I'm easy enough to find. I'm relatively terrible on my socials, but if you go Richard Bedford Music, Facebook, I think there's my artist pages under that. You can find me on Twitter under Richard Bedford, Instagram under Richard Bedford Music, I think.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I'll have to say. Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah.
I think that's
No,
the full.
if people type Richard Bedford, you come straight to the top of Google. I absolutely know that.
I didn't always, though. There's a Canadian Prime Minister who used to top me, but I've I've pushed him down to annals of history.
There you go. So it's always great to see you.
Yeah,
It's always good to see you. Thank you so much for coming on, and we catch up soon anyway. And I'm sure we'll have another conversation where we go, we need to record that more. And so I'm sure there'll be another. You'll come back on at some point, won't you, and tell us what you're up to?
Yeah, I'd love to. This was a kind of preview.
Well, preview. I like it.
Be a sequel.
Yeah. See you for the sequel. Cheers. See you soon.
Part 2. See you later.
Thanks for listening to the Resilience Development Podcast. I recommend you check Richard's YouTube channel by searching for Our Moment of Calm, or seek him out on the socials. Have a listen to his fantastic voice and lyrics, and I'll see you in a fortnight.